all these teams for Square Enix? Because like they have all these ideas, but then they can't execute them because they're lacking in the manpower in the teams that they have within their company. It's healthy for teams, for companies, to reach out to a newer audience. I actually do believe, and I believe this for the longest time, that Square Enix needs to create a whole new audience, especially how a lot of the older fans, which are older than me, are tired of Square Enix. Everyone, for today's video, oh yeah, Happy New Year, by the way. My apologies, it's been a long time since I actually made a long form video. I've been posting a lot of shorts, so hopefully you guys been kind of enjoying what I've been posting, and also I've been live streaming. But during the Christmas season, I've been absolutely busy, and then I got sick like right after New Year's, and here I am recovering, and it's been kind of slowing down on what I want to create when it comes down to content. So my apologies. So if I sound a bit different or if I'm coughing throughout the video, I'm still recovering, so my apologies. I hope you guys are patient with me, as I have no script. I did make an outline for this video. This is actually a very important topic I really wanted to talk about last month. I'm a bit late, well, not a bit late. I'm really late to the news when it comes to this. This was out literally last month, talking about Square Enix's management, their sales, how they budget their games, and it's not looking too bright. And as a channel that covers actually a lot of Square Enix games, like Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts is actually one of the main reasons why I started this whole content creation journey, because not only I was like sharing my love for the series when I initially started back in 2017, but it was also the fact that the community from these franchises that Square Enix has created, or Squaresoft has created. It's been such a wonderful time just kind of making content for the community, and also other people who are not within the community, just people around the globe, you know, enjoying the stuff that I be making. So I thought this was like a very important video to make. I want to make it clear as well, like this is my stance when it comes to this situation. Because I know I'm probably gonna have the shill allegations, of course, but this is like a corp on corp beef. Like this has nothing to really do with me or us as consumers. This is just something between the corporations or these companies. And also, please know, there's no reason to really shill for these companies, these corporations, because they'll do anything for money. And they'll stab you in the back as long as there's a lot of money for wherever they're at. As long as there's a lot of money at the end goal for them, they'll just stab you in the back. So I want to make that clear. You know, I'm not that type of person who will defend these certain companies, because I wouldn't. I'm the last person to do that. But here's the thing. As I was growing up, and as I played also a lot of games, a lot of Square Enix titles have really touched my heart. And more so, it was the developers, the teams that have done wonderful jobs over the years creating the best quality content that they can for us, along with its art. What I love about Square Enix when I was growing up, when I first experienced Kingdom Hearts 2 and I saw how the game was, not that the game was just fun overall, the CG cutscenes, even though they were just CG cutscenes, the art style behind those CG cutscenes were one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen for video games, or not just video games, but animation overall. Just watching it was like, I don't know, Square Enix, when it comes to their art style, like the way that they format their games, how they organize their games, I just understand their formula and what they do, and I got used to it over time. And also I grew to really love it each and every time. And of course, you know, like as the years pass on, like after the mid 2000s, like yes, of course I started to question Square Enix on why are they making a lot of portable games instead of console games. Like, well, where is the direction of the company going? Well, I didn't really think about that sort of stuff because, you know, I was still young, but more so like I was like, why we don't have like any console games? Why they're all on the PSP? Why they're being labeled as mobile games and all that sort of stuff. So that's when I started questioning the teams at that time. But overall, like, they still manage to make fun quality games wherever they're at, or wherever they're making their games at for a certain platform. In this video, we're going to be talking about, there has been a big presentation called Square Enix Next, That Excitement Once Again, which is a big presentation. It's like over 100 pages, I think. And I did actually look through each page. I skimmed through all the corporate yapping and everything. But I'll just kind of share my thoughts, and I'm not going to go over everything. I will share the link with you guys in the description down below, so feel free. But it's from the 3D investors or investment partners, 3D investment partners presentation about Square Enix and what they were highlighting about the company and their issues so far on what they have with Square Enix as a whole. And this is honestly sad to see, you know, because like I said, I grew up with Square Enix. I believe in the team on what they create. I have big respect for a lot of the teams because they make a lot of magical experiences personally for me, and obviously plenty of others out there who have consumed a lot of Square Enix games. So we're just going to be talking about not every single thing in this video, but I'm just going to share my thoughts as a consumer, as a fan, and hoping to see Square Enix kind of make that comeback, because I've been waiting for a very, very long time. And yeah, although this presentation is kind of reaching on certain things, which I will actually talk about, they do make valid points as well, of course, because I mean, the reason why this is all public is because investors are involved with Square Enix, and when investors are involved, of course, it's out there. You know, you are sharing your product with many other people who want to invest into your business. Anyway, but I'll give a little quick summary about this whole 3D investment partners presentation about Square Enix. They talk about how Square Enix does a lot of mismanagement with their teams, the way that they budget their titles. They spend way too much money on producing these games, and they're very slow on putting out these games, and they also don't make a lot of sales on top of all that. And pretty much, like, just overall, the presentation is just describing how Square Enix is not a efficient company as what it used to be back in the day. And this presentation also talks about and compares a lot with other companies that have been successful within the gaming industry. So you'll see Nintendo in the presentation, you'll see Capcom and their game Monster Hunter. It's so crazy how they're doing that comparison, because that's pretty much me right now. I've been loving a lot of Capcom games as of since they did their whole big reboot back in 2017. And I've been loving the Monster Hunter series, and yeah, Monster Hunter is one of their compared gaming titles in that presentation, where it's making a lot of sales and it's still producing good quality features for the fans, and also it's making sales for the company. And they compare that with Final Fantasy and other franchises as well. And they highlight Capcom's comeback, because a lot of the companies that they really compare is Sega and Capcom, because they were also struggling as well during the mid 2000s or early 2010s, you could say. I think Sega's okay. I don't know if they had a big comeback, but I know for sure that they are making bank with the Yakuza series and also Persona, because they have different teams and they're constantly producing a lot of stuff within their company. And also with Capcom, they have multiple teams. They have Monster Hunter, they have Resident Evil, they have Dragon's Dogma, they have Devil May Cry. They've been releasing banger after banger. Right now we're kind of experiencing that golden era of Capcom, and I'm honestly sinking it in, and which is why I've been loving the quality of games during that time when they first dropped that reboot of Resident Evil, or more so Resident Evil 7, and then Monster Hunter World, because also at that time, other than Kingdom Hearts, I was covering those games, and they have been So fun. That's pretty much what the presentation talks about, and like I said, a lot of the financial stuff. So if you want to check it out, I will link the PDF in the description down below if you want to check it out as you're watching or hearing out this video. One of the main things I really want to talk about with you guys is how disconnected Square Enix is between the developers and the players. Or more so, maybe not the developers, maybe developers have something to do with it, but I feel like this is more of the management, whoever is in charge of like pushing out these titles, because for whatever reason, Square Enix has this weird ideology of like, oh yeah, you know, the people may like these certain games, and not that it's a bad thing to push new IPs or new ideas to an audience, but for Square to be known for more so Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, and probably like other games, right? They need to put that effort. So let's talk about like the unwanted titles that people didn't really want from Square Enix. And when I was listing these titles, I was also like kind of cringing. They really said, hey, let's just put this out, and because for sure like all these gamers are gonna eat it up for sure, right? I don't know. It was so weird why they decided to do this, but okay. This is what I listed. Battleland Wonderland. I think that's what you call it. Wait, let me see. Yeah, so we have Battleland Wonderland. They used a lot of resources. There's been a lot of controversy with the director of that game, I think. More so, a lot of resources. The game took some time to make, and it just was not a fun game overall, according to some people who have actually played the game. And then we move on to a game called Left Alive. For those who don't know, Square Enix attempted to make a Metal Gear Solid game. That sounds actually pretty good on textbook, right? On text, sounds amazing, especially if it has like a Square Enix flavor to it, because, you know, there's a game called Parasite Eve, which is pretty much their Final Fantasy Resident Evil, which people actually like, right? Or at least with the first game. So with Left Alive, although it's a great concept to have, there was not a lot of effort in that game. The game was very cheap, and the only thing that was expensive was the art itself, the front cover, because they had the main artist of the Metal Gear series write the cover, or not write, illustrate the cover art. Yeah, the game was pretty jank. It didn't seem as inspired to, I don't know why, I don't know. Like, it was just, when I first heard about it and saw the gameplay, I was like, oh god, Jesus, it's not looking too bright for Square's. This was just kind of pushed under the rug after that whole release. And then they continue with Final Fantasy VII First Soldier, which is a mobile battle royale. Now, this was released during a time where Battle Royale was a bit trendy, and although it does seem cringe that Square Enix is, at this point, they're kind of trend chasing what is good for the gaming market, you could say. Final Fantasy VII First Soldier, from the gameplay footage I've seen and how the systems operated, it seemed like it was genuinely a fun game, because personally I actually do play Battle Royales, and yeah, First Soldier seemed like a fun game, especially had that Final Fantasy flavor on it, and I was actually wanting to play it. But when I heard when it was only exclusive to mobile, to the App Store, it was such a big turnoff, and it didn't make sense, because they made this game because they really wanted to be more in touch with a lot of the modern gaming audiences, and also make the Final Fantasy franchise reach out more to newer players, right? But that didn't work, because they made it exclusive to the App Store. It wasn't even ported over to the Steam store or like the console stores. Only on mobile. And I know people say that, well, you could use BlueStacks to emulate it, but like, I don't want to do all that. No one wants to really do all that. Eventually, they closed it down. So a lot of resources, a lot of time has been wasted on Final Fantasy VII First Soldier. And I actually wanted to play it. I don't know. It just never made sense on why a game like that was supposed to reach out to a bigger audience was very exclusive to a platform. Especially if, I don't know, it's not like, it seems like they weren't doing their research, because especially a lot of Western gamers, they hate mobile gaming, including me. And then last but not least, since Splatoon is very popular in Japan, Square Enix was like, let's make Foam Stars. And although I heard some that like Foam Stars doesn't really play like a Splatoon game, it's its own thing. Let's be for real too, like the way that's advertised is very Splatoon-like, and yeah, no one was just interested. I wasn't even interested at all. And especially when Square Enix is really popular and they really prioritize a lot of the single player experiences in the past decades already, right? So these are like the titles so far that I've kind of mentioned. I don't know if I left off anything, so feel free to comment down below what also was that was cringe with Square Enix on their releases. But yeah, a lot of resources and management with all these teams are like misused for all these releases that were soon to be kind of put under the rug or been like shut down. And the problem is with Square Enix is that they isolate themselves a lot. For those who don't know, Square Enix has that PlayStation payroll. They always sign a lot of exclusive contracts with PlayStation, and little did they know that will highly affect their exposure to a lot of these markets within the gaming industry. Like, for example, what I just mentioned, FF7 First Soldier. That was literally a game that was only exclusive to the App Store, or if you had BlueStacks. And the purpose of that game, like I said, was to be a big outreach to a broader community and gaming audience, so people could see how Final Fantasy is like. Foam Stars, they're trying to like reach out to people who like Splatoon. But funny enough, this multiplayer game is only on PlayStation console, so on the PS4 and PS5. I did a little additional research when I was kind of listing this. So stuff like that, it's just a bit mind-boggling. And for the longest time, a lot of the Final Fantasy games and Kingdom Hearts have been locked behind a lot of these exclusive contracts with PlayStation. So they've been in the PlayStation market for the longest time, rather than it being on the Xbox market, rather than it being on the Nintendo market. Nowadays, they are like finally hitting a lot of the different platforms, different stores. But just think about it. For many years, for over a decade, they've been kind of on their own. And to be honest, they were kind of still striving and up as a company. But yeah, like it's so mind-boggling how they never decided to do it until now, because it was talked about from a Square Enix executive that they are undergoing changes. One of their big business changes is making their games multi-platform, which is what we're seeing with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth. We're seeing it now on the Switch. We're seeing it now on PC, and now we're also seeing it on Xbox, at least with the first remake. So there's that. Right, but it just took so long for them to finally decide, like, oh, the reason why like we're not reaching the sales, we're not reaching in certain audience because we're not multi-platform. You know, it's like, yes, of course. Although Square Enix has been trying to produce different titles and reach different audiences, I would also say that it's a healthy thing to do that. I think it's okay to push out different products. It's okay to have different direction for certain games, or where you want to take your company to. I think that's like I said, it's an absolutely healthy thing to do for a company, especially if you're trying to have a different audience at this point. This was kind of funny to me in this presentation because of how 3D investment partners kind of capitalize a lot on the hate that fans have been giving, just because Square Enix has been trying to do something different for the longest time already. Listen, I'm on board no matter what company you are and you're producing these games, I'm on board on what you guys do, right? I don't care what game it is, as long as the quality of the game is good, right? And it makes sense to produce it as well. If I were to be like the head department of your guys' business, as long as it makes sense and it's a good quality game. The games that I listed earlier had no sense. Well, I mean, Balan Wonderland actually was a bit valid to make, you could say, because it was a different game and they took a chance on it, despite what has happened to that title. But the other titles like Foam Stars and Left Alive, the FF7, First Soldier, I mean, yeah, and also, of course, Balan Wonderland, you need to have quality work into your content, into what you're giving out. But these games clearly have quality work into them. I have played FF16. I have not played the Dragon Quest III remake, but from what I saw, it didn't even look as horrible. So I find this disingenuous in the presentation, because it just kind of capitalizes on the downfall for Square Enix when it comes to just them. This is just such an easy point to prove in a meeting, because you're just using, you could just quote this from anywhere. And then they continue to kind of talk about other titles. Oh yeah, that is right. They did push out Marvel's Avengers and Babylon's Fall. And then I actually did play Forspoken. That actually wasn't a bad game. I know that's like a controversial take, right? A lot of people didn't like me when I posted that video last year, talking about how Forspoken is actually a fun game to play. It's not the perfect game, of course, but overall, it's a decent game. It got way too overhated. FF16, I feel like it's half and half from the feedback that I've read and seen. But like I said, saying that it's low quality, FF16, a low quality game? What? Have you seen the boss fights in that game? Have you seen the combat system? Or not the combat system, the actual combat. Something different in the Final Fantasy franchise. Every time there is something new in the series when it comes to Final Fantasy, it's just a tradition at this point, where it has like immense amount of hate. I don't know how Square Enix, well, I guess maybe it stems from Versus 13 and the disappointment that everyone had from it, of it not being a thing. Since with FF13 and maybe even before that, there has been a lot of weird obsessive hate with a lot of modern Square Enix titles. I don't know where this audience comes from. I don't know where exactly it stems from. And a lot of people, they don't seem to have moved on from Square Enix as a company. Which is why I say that it's healthy for teams, for companies, to reach out to a newer audience. I actually do believe, and I believe this for the longest time, that Square Enix needs to create a whole new audience, especially how a lot of the older fans, which are older than me, are tired of Square Enix. I'm not personally tired of Square Enix. I've been enjoying the games they've been pushing out since FF7 Remake, and even with Kingdom Hearts 3. I know that sounds like a controversial take. Like I said, Forspoken, I actually enjoy that. Yes, it could have been way better in the way how they could have implemented a lot of their combat, but it was fun overall because the concept of that game was different. I never really experienced a game that implemented parkour and combat at the same time and make it entertaining. I also want to say, at the same time, games like this, like Babylon's Fall and Marvel's Avengers, there is validity to how people feel, and also if the upper management feels about these certain games. Well, more so the upper management or the investors, all they care is that if the game makes the money, right? But as a consumer, I understand why a lot of people don't like Babylon's Fall, because no one really asked for big multiplayer games, PvE games also, like that from Square Enix. And Square Enix continued it with Marvel's Avengers. This was made by a different team. It wasn't made by a in-house team. And I personally play Marvel's Avengers, and the way that they format it, what really killed the game was the live service, and also how they kind of did the combat. It wasn't as inspired. Like the reoccurring thing of what I personally been seeing with a lot of these Square Enix games is that now with FF16, I haven't even played Dragon Quest Remake, but like between these, like with all these three, is the uninspired combat, or at least the execution of combat. Forspoken had good combat, good concepts, right? But the way that it felt and how it was controlled in the game could have been improved much more. It could have been way better on how they could have handled the whole concept of parkour and combat and how you could utilize it throughout the overworld. And Babylon's Fall, never personally played it. I just heard that people just weren't as interested, and yeah, there was just no incentive to get into it because there wasn't probably as interesting combat. Same with Marvel's Avengers as well. Like, I don't know why this wasn't a single player game. I don't know why. Because they were aiming the game to be a live service and try to make some bank off live service games because, you know, they were reading the stats at that time saying, oh, that's all these live service games are making the big bucks, so we have to make one. Which is why Square Enix was also trying to focus and shift a lot of their games into the mobile market. But that didn't work out for them because they're not really known for that. They're known for their single player experiences like Final Fantasy. Shifting your games to a mobile market or having live service games is such a big shift to that whole atmosphere, or for the consumer that is trying to enjoy a lot of your titles. So there's problems with Square Enix isolating themselves, not understanding what the consumer would really want. And like I said, it's brilliant that they're trying different things, which is why they did something like FF16, which is why they have something like Forspoken, and which is why they attempted to make a FF7 Battle Royale. And here's the thing, it's nice to have different ideas. It's nice to see different directions on what Square Enix wants to do with a lot of their games, but it's the matter of how it's executed. How are you going to put quality into these titles? How are you going to have all these teams manage them? One of the main issues as well is the mismanagement with Square Enix. Although I believe that developers should decide on what they should create and what they should do, there should also be like that middle ground on what they should understand on what to create for the audience, okay? I know that sounds, I think I sound kind of conflicting right now, but what I'm pretty much trying to say is that you don't have to completely listen to all the criticisms that's been put out. I personally believe that the internet, these certain gamers out there who are constantly criticizing a lot of these Square Enix titles, right? Or just any other games particularly, they don't know what they want. A lot of gamers don't really know what they want, alright? And I know this for a fact because when I first played FF7 Rebirth, it's honestly one of the best games I personally played in 2024. And the fact that people were complaining that it has so much content, I'm like, that's the purpose. So we don't have to, like, wait until part 3. We could enjoy the full game and, you know, write it out. It's okay if games are long. I understand, like, the other conversation about bloat and whatever, but personally, like, the game was more, you could really digest the game. It wasn't as like difficult or annoying to consume. Another example was the whole situation with Mirror's Edge. People wanted that game back because people were very nostalgic about the first Mirror's Edge, and you know, it hasn't been created in a long time. So when Mirror's Edge came back, no one really bought it. It didn't sell well, so they stopped making it. Which is what I mean, where like gamers don't know what they want, and I would rather have a developer decide. I would rather have the artist decide on where they want to go and what direction they want to take their games to. But at the same time, make it also logical, make it reasonable on why we should come back and try out your games and play them. Like, I would actually love a Square Enix title that is inspired by MGS, but you would need a team that probably wouldn't know how to create one. Same goes for the FF7 Battle Royale. Even Battleland Wonderland, even Foam Stars, have proper teams that know what they're doing and know how to make quality content in their games. That leads on to my next topic, is about its management. We need teams that are active and know what they're doing for each and every team. With whatever project that they're working on, they need to be very consistent. The reason why Capcom is very successful and why it's currently in its golden era is simply because they have multiple teams producing different titles and even new titles. The fact that we're having a game like Pragmata, and then we're gonna have a game like Onimusha probably maybe late next year or whenever that is coming out, and then like in a month from now we're having Resident Evil 9, and they're all consistent, they're all fun to play, they all have their different audiences. Whoever is investing into Capcom as a consumer or even as a business partner, we're all eating. The only big titles that are produced with Square Enix as of now, since even before the pandemic, is the Final Fantasy team, the Final Fantasy VII team, who's creating the remake. And then we have the Kingdom Hearts team. And we haven't heard about Kingdom Hearts 4 in a long time. It's been since 2022, I think. And it's crazy because Square Enix does have good titles, because we also have Nier, but what happened to that? Where is Nier? What happened to all these teams? What are they working on? Yeah, right now it's looking like a mess right now for Square, and I do hope it gets better. I really do. I also put down in my outline before like we kind of conclude the video is that Square also needs to improve on the marketing. I think it's kind of obvious to a lot of people who have like follow a lot of Square Enix titles. They tend to spoil a lot of the game's story or content in their trailers or in their previews. They did that a lot with Kingdom Hearts 3, which is why one of the reasons people didn't like the game as much when it first released. They did that also with Life is Strange Double Exposure, which is supposed to be one of their big games because one of the first main characters in the Life is Strange franchise, Max Caulfield, returned. Yeah, and people weren't fond of that game with its story. And then they did that with the Final Fantasy VII remake. There needs to be some improvement with the marketing and also like the early announcements where they announce a game and then we're not going to see it in years. That gotta stop. So there's that. Like, marketing is a big thing. I think also it's just but more so it's the disconnect with the studios, the developers, and then the player or the gamers. There's like a weird disconnect where Square Enix doesn't want to produce these great titles. Like on textbook, they sound great, but then when it's executed, they have like one of the weakest teams creating it, or they don't have like an experienced team, unfortunately, for these games. With the projects that I've been experiencing from Square Enix, when it comes to Kingdom Hearts 3, when it comes to Rebirth, remake, FF7 remake, I mean even Forspoken, I'll put Forspoken in there, and then FF16. It feels great to see that these games have big, strong qualities about them. Of course, each game has their own flaws, but the thing is, the consistency has to be intact with a lot of these teams. It needs to be there. And I feel like right now in the offices, they're kind of just scrambled everywhere at this point. And I haven't really talked about Kingdom Hearts 4, but I'm a bit concerned when it comes to that game because I don't know when they actually really start development. I know they showed gameplay back in 2022 with that trailer, but honestly, that's, as the years pass on, that's looking like a concept video, just like how they did with Kingdom Hearts 3. Even though that actually looked a bit more real compared to the Kingdom Hearts 3 concept video in, I think, 2013. So other than that, man, I do hope Square Enix does improve in the future. I don't know what is going to happen to them from a decade from now. I hope to see Square Enix from a decade from now and them producing great titles, great quality titles for everybody, and also everyone like kind of in Square Enix's warmth, enjoying their games and praising them just like how Capcom is. Like, I would love to see a Capcom come back for Square Enix. I've been saying that for the longest time, and I honestly thought they were on that comeback when they released FF7 Remake and Kingdom Hearts 3, but after that, we don't really see any other games from them. So, and right now, that's the next two games that we're waiting for from them is Kingdom Hearts 4 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 3. So I don't know what is going on, and I hope we have a near game soon. I hope we have different titles. I hope they're not pressured from that presentation, to say the least. I still want to see the vision on what they always want to create, whether it's Final Fantasy or not, or Kingdom Hearts. I don't care. I just hope for better quality games. That is it. That's really it. Especially Square Enix, they're so talented on producing a lot of their systems. Like the FF7 Remake systems, it's probably one of the best hybrid of action and turn-based systems they created, right? And I hope they reuse it somehow in some sort of way, because Square Enix is kind of infamous for not really reusing a lot of their systems or assets in a way. I mean, yeah, they made sequels, like with 10 and also Final Fantasy 13, but if they understand how that works, do it again with the other titles, right? But that's what I really respect about Square Enix, is that they always strive to be different with a lot of their games, and they work hard on their systems. That's why I'm always impressed with them. And then they have their own art style, their own art in general, and their own unique ideas with their games with Final Fantasy. So right now, Square Enix has two good systems, which is from FF16. They have a pure live action system, right, with FF16, and they could explore much more with that. And then they could explore much more with the FF7 remake combat system. So they have two things. They have the blueprints already, and I hope they utilize it in the future. So this is what I mean by, like, I hope they have these teams that are consistent, know the quality, understand how things work, and so that they could produce these titles in the future. I also did say that before. Now that I'm talking about it, I remember that I was like, where are all these teams for Square Enix? Because, like, they have all these ideas, but then they can't execute them because they're lacking in the manpower, in the teams that they have within their company. So I think that's one of the main things I think Square Enix should focus on. I know this is not that type of video of what Square Enix should do or not, but my personal take, my personal opinion, I feel like they should start on managing their teams properly and knowing and train them what to do, how they should produce these titles, get that formula. Because also what makes Sega very popular as well with the Yakuza franchise is that they always produce like the Yakuza titles every other year, and it's still good quality. You could say like, oh, they're kind of copy and pasting, but for those who have actually played the Yakuza titles, they actually do feel different with its combat or the way that they implement their other systems or other content, because games like Yakuza Kiwami 1 is so different from Yakuza 4, or Yakuza 5 is so different from Yakuza 6. A lot of their games are unique in their own ways, but they're still able to reuse assets and systems and explore much more of that, which helps more opportunities for these teams to like make different concepts or different approaches on how the game is formatted. And Capcom does that with Monster Hunter and their other titles like Resident Evil, right? You guys get what I'm saying. From a decade from now, I hope to see Square still and thriving and doing the stuff that they want to do, other than kind of like kiss ass to a lot of more corporates and trying to like squeeze more money from the consumers. I hope they eventually over time they improve on their dev cycles, because they make a lot of their games take way too long. But how do you guys feel about the state of Square Enix right now? Are you guys iffy with it? You guys think they're gonna make a big comeback? Because right now it's not looking too bright, but you think they're gonna improve in the future? Let me know. Remember, drop a like, hype up the video, as we do talk about and play a lot of Square Enix games. And remember to subscribe, as I do cover Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. Alright, I'm out. Peace.